Ooh, who's trading and who's not trading? It tells you what they think about their season. We'll talk about that here today on Locked On NFL.
The barbershop is open and Tony Wiggins has a chair for you. He's ready with some real NFL talk. The local experts of Locked On bring their expertise, and Wiggy is ready with his clippers and shears. Sit down and enjoy. The new Locked On NFL starts now. Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yo, welcome in to the new Locked On NFL, bringing you a double dose of the NFL's biggest stories with the help of our local experts that know your favorite teams like no one else. I'm the host, the barber, Tony Wiggins, and joining me today on the show is Locked On NFL expert, my brother from another mother, David Harrison. Here's what we're going to talk about here today on Locked On NFL. A lot of moving and shaking going on around in the NFL. We're going to end up talking about the teams that didn't do anything and the surprise teams so far this season. Ooh, the AFC South is a mess. That's my division. But I'm going to let David talk about it and let him tell you all of the stuff that's going on there. And then the Diontae Johnson trade from Carolina to a contender in Baltimore. Who's the winner and who's the real loser? And what does it mean? We're going to get into all of that here on Locked On NFL. But first, I want to thank you for making us your first listen of the day and for being an everyday here on Locked On NFL, which is a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. Make sure you tune in again on Locked On NFL tomorrow morning, the AM version, and get the Madman Tyler rolling for more coverage. Today's episode is sponsored and brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return to FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Time for me to get started with my homie, David Harrison. David, I've been expecting a lot of things around the league. We saw Cam Robinson get moved from the Jaguars. We've seen all of this movement. I didn't, however, expect after 1 year in Carolina, Diontae Johnson would be beelining and going to the rival of the team that he came from in Pittsburgh. Now he's going to Baltimore.
Yeah, man. I mean, Diontae Johnson heading back to the division that he started off in. And I remember when he came out in the NFL draft, I was covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Bruce Arians was the head coach, and he really, really wanted Diontae Johnson. Like, he wanted Diontae Johnson to be on his team. I was getting excited because I watched a lot of Diontae Johnson tape, and I was like, man, I can't wait for this dude to be a Buccaneer and to get to cover him. And the Pittsburgh Steelers got wind of it and said, nah, we're going to trade up. We're going to grab him. And Bruce Arians was incredibly unhappy. But, you know, Diontae has taken a really interesting, path in his career, still very young. But he's got to be over the moon heading from a team that is clearly going nowhere and probably won't go anywhere for at least 2 or 3 more years to a team that is trying to win a ring, right? So he goes suddenly from the bottom of the league to the top of the league, overnight. And he's got to be looking forward to what he's going to be able to do with Lamar there in Baltimore.
Absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that because you know what? There's always 2 sides of every story. We're going to hear both of them. I want to hear Kevin Oestreicher from the Baltimore Ravens, who covers the Baltimore Ravens with Locked On Ravens. He has to be through the moon with happiness. Check this out.
The Baltimore Ravens make a trade. I'm Kevin Oestreicher, the host of Locked On Ravens. Diontae Johnson, the Carolina Panthers wide receiver, is on his way to Baltimore. Compensation reportedly Baltimore's 5th round pick for Carolina's 6th round pick and a pick swap. And of course, Diontae Johnson being the main headliner of that package. Baltimore brings him into an offense that currently has Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman as their top 2 wide receivers, but Diontae Johnson will serve as a nice change of pace and another weapon for Lamar Jackson. There's still a possibility the Ravens make another move, possibly on the defensive side of the ball. But for now, Baltimore adds to their wide receiver room with a solid veteran. For more on the Ravens and this big Diontae Johnson trade, be sure to check out the Locked On Ravens podcast and subscribe on YouTube, part of Locked On Podcast Network.
Yeah, so you can tell right there, Oestreicher, he ain't sad. We know what somebody sounds like when they ain't happy. This is a good football player. Mm-hmm. Is he redundant? Is he redundant with Zay Flowers? Did they need a catch radius guy? That's just my opinion. I'm just asking. He's a good football player. He's a good route runner. But is he a little bit redundant with what they already have?
A little bit. But you know what? I think when you're in the position the Baltimore Ravens are in, you can get away with that because Rashad Bateman, he certainly had flashes in his career, and he certainly even had moments this season. And I know he had a really bad moment that a lot of people are pointing to and saying that's the moment right there where the ball bounces off his face mask. That's why the Baltimore Ravens go out and make a trade like this. And I think, GMs, just like looking behind the curtain, GMs are always looking at ways to improve their team. So this is not, it's not like that ball bounced off Rashad Bateman and the Baltimore Ravens like, all right, we got to go talk about receiver. And then the next day they're making a deal. Like, that's not how this works. So they were already looking to improve that room. And I think really what it's about is stressing defenses as much as possible. They're not so much worried about how much it's going to impact their offense as much as it's going to impact defenses, if that makes any sense. Because anytime you look at an NFL offense, what you're looking for is 3 or more weapons. If you have 3 or more legitimate threats to a defense, you can really stress the defense out. And as an offensive coordinator, you can get really creative. And you got Lamar Jackson, who's obviously a weapon of his own beyond his arm. Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers has proven to be a weapon. Really just look at the tight end room. I mean, look, this week it might be Mark Andrews. It might be Isaiah Likely. I mean, it might be somebody else. But the bottom line is the Ravens know how to get their tight ends involved against your defense. So you have to account for the tight end. And Rashad Bateman, again, he's had his moments, but now you bring in Diontae Johnson. And when you look at Diontae, he's always been a player that it's on the offensive coordinator to get him involved. Like, as excited as people are, nobody needs to look at him as a game changer like Devontae Adams has been, or maybe a Stephon Diggs can be when he's healthy and all these things. But you look at Diontae Johnson's career, 11.5 yards per reception, 10.5, 10.9, 10.3, 14.1, and then this year 11.9. Like, he's a guy that's very consistent. His success rate on his catches, 48%, 47, 47, 49, 52, 39 this year in Carolina. So I put that more on the Carolina Panthers. What's the anomaly here? It's the team he's coming from. So if Todd Monken has a plan for him, that's the key. You got to have a plan for how to use this guy. He's going to give you consistent production. Like, he had the 1,000-yard season with the Pittsburgh Steelers and a Pro Bowl year that didn't go away because Diontae Johnson went away. It went away because Pittsburgh Steelers, I don't want to say forgot how to use them, but they just started emphasizing other things. So the Baltimore Ravens are going to get as much out of Diontae Johnson as they put into him, and that's going to be on Todd Monken to make it work. If it doesn't work, it's going to be because the Ravens didn't have a good plan to make it work. But again, man, when you look at just all the other weapons, like, it's kind of hard to say that it's not going to work. It might be a little bit less explosive. I've heard some people talk about like, oh, they're going to take the lid off of offenses or defense. I don't think that's really where this move is really about. It's about weakening the middle of the defense even more to allow Lamar Jackson to have open middles of the field and to allow Derrick Henry to have soft boxes.
Yeah, and you mentioned something. You said that Diontae Johnson's number, the numbers going down might be more of indicative where he comes from, because everybody with a pass comes from somewhere, right? He came from Carolina. Listen to my man Julian Council talk about them and where are they going. Listen to this.
And looking at all this in totality, in the end, the Carolina Panthers traded Diontae Jackson, a starting cornerback they plan to cut for Diontae Johnson, a much-needed starting wide receiver. They also swapped their 6th-round pick with Pittsburgh for a 7th-round pick. The Panthers used that 7th-round pick to draft Michael Barrett out of Michigan, who they then traded to Seattle for Mike Jackson, another starting cornerback who they needed after Dane Jackson went out with a hamstring injury and was going to miss the first couple weeks of the season. Mike Jackson has started all 8 games so far for Carolina, while Dane Jackson has played in only 1. So after 7 games played, that is, the Panthers traded away Diontae Johnson. So ultimately, Diontae Jackson, Diontae Johnson, Michael Barrett are no longer with the Carolina Panthers. The only player still connected to that trade back in March who remains on the roster is Mike Jackson. And the Panthers, by the way, are 1-7.
Sounds like a hot mess to me, doesn't it? It's just a whole bunch of stuff there, and it's like you ate a whole plate of food and you didn't get full, man. There's a lot of empty stuff going on in there, isn't it?
Yeah, man, that's a franchise that just doesn't have direction. Like, they're just throwing stuff against the wall, hoping it sticks. They don't have a plan. They don't know where they're going. They don't know where they want to go. Like, that's a mess, man. If you have an expiring contract in Carolina, man, you need to get out as quickly as possible. And that wig, honestly, is why I think if we talk about who the biggest winner of this trade is, it's Diontae Johnson. Diontae Johnson turns 29 in July. So he's still on the right side of 30. And like I said, his production has been fairly consistent. And if Todd Monken can make him nationally aware, right? If he can put him back on the national stage where he was for a short period of time with the Pittsburgh Steelers, he's going to enter the free agency period. The Baltimore Ravens are not going to be able to pay for him if he has a great season, if he wins the Super Bowl ring, and he is going to go out and he's going to get a very, very nice 3-year contract from someone if he can make if he can capitalize on the opportunity that he has right now. So for Diontae Johnson, man, not only should you be celebrating getting out of Carolina, you need to be in the lab, studying as much as you can, spend the night at Lamar Jackson's house, watch tape with Lamar, do everything you can to make sure that this back half of this season is the best back half of the season you have ever had, and then you're going to go get paid in the offseason.
And turn it into more money. That's right. That's what we do here on Locked On NFL, man. We give you the biggest stories from around the league. And now we also have to talk about the trash that we take out here on Locked On NFL. And that would be the AFC South and the mess that is going on in what was a promising division at the beginning of the season. We'll discuss that in just a second here on Locked On NFL. Today's show is sponsored and brought to you by Bilt.com. That's right. Listen, if you are tired of the rent game, right? And we know how that goes. If you're a renter and you're stuck in the loop of rent payments, just watching your money vanish into thin air, it's time to turn that rent game around and start earning some serious rewards when you pay your rent. That's right. That's where Bilt Rewards comes in. Real talk, we've all been there feeling like we're burning cash with those rent checks. It's frustrating, right? But here's the deal. Bilt Rewards has figured out a way to make rent more rewarding. Say goodbye to the money bonfire, that is, and hello to a renter's revolution with Bilt. Bilt is breaking ground as a neighborhood rewards program that hooks you up with points on your rent every month. Pay your rent and watch the Bilt points roll in. Earn points by paying rent right now when you go to joinbilt.com/lockedonnfl. That's joinbilt.com/lockedonnfl. Make sure you use our URL so they know we sent you. Join built.com/lockedonnfl to start earning points with your rent payments today. Rolling along here on Locked On NFL, where it is your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen here. There are some divisions that can't get out of their own way. Stephon Diggs got banged up with the Colts, going to miss the rest of the season. They're already missing Nico Collins. And then their interior offensive line has been a little bit of a wreck. So CJ Stroud isn't having the year that we thought he was going to have. Doug Peterson's probably going to end up getting fired because the Jaguars are a dumpster fire. The Colts, an interesting team. They kind of hover right there in the middle, David. They got some problems now because the quarterback tapped out. I want you to tell me what you think about that first, and then we'll hear from Locked On Colts, and we can expound further on the future of Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, man. You know, we've talked about this before. Not every person that's in a leadership position is a leader. Yeah. And you know what? Not everybody that is a leader is in a leadership position all the time. Mm-hmm. The quarterback position on an NFL team is a leadership position. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter how long they've been in the league. None of that matters. It is a leadership position just by its very existence. All right. I cover the Washington Commanders, where they have no permanent captains. There are no Washington Commanders wearing C's on their chest this season. And that is by design by Dan Quinn. But when you hear players talk about Jaden Daniels, they talk about, man, we're lucky to have 5 leading the squad. Da, 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 da. He is a leader. Bottom line. Like, it doesn't matter, man. You are a leader. Leaders can't take themselves off the battlefield, Wig. We can get in. You know that. I know that. Anybody who's ever been in a competitive business knows that. It doesn't have to be football, military. If you've been in a competitive environment, you know leaders cannot take themselves off the field. That's a young man mistake. I'm kind of sitting here going like, bro, how did PR not prep him for that question? How did PR not talk to him about, hey, dude, let's not necessarily talk about you bringing yourself off the field? But that's a whole different story. I don't know if this move is directly from that or if that was just, the final straw. I feel like it was more just the final straw. But Anthony Richardson still has plenty of talent left in the tank, and this one move should not kill his NFL career. It's a very bad look, man. And it's really hard to come back from while you're wearing this uniform.
Yep, and you got it. It doesn't mean he has bad character. Doesn't mean he has bad football character. What it
Right.
is I think he just didn't understand the job description. And the job description for a quarterback on a National Football League team is you always gotta you can't show it on your face, man, because you got 53 other guys looking for you. I want you to hear the despair in my man from Locked On Coach. Check my man out.
I don't see the future. I don't see it anymore, man. Like, I just don't. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. Like, I just do not understand what the plan is here for the Colts. So, looking to the future now, like, is this thing salvageable with Anthony Richardson? Honestly, I want someone to find one example for me, and you guys are in the comment section right now. Find one example for me of a healthy quarterback being benched, a healthy young quarterback being benched, and then coming back and being the future of that team and being the guy. I think the only one I had brought up for me was Terry Bradshaw back when my parents were children. Benched. We're talking benched here.
Yeah, with the same team, he's got a point. I mean, we could go back and I can name people when I was a kid. Jim Plunkett, we went and won 2 Super Bowls with a different team, and we see Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. Very rarely do you see it with the team that decided to take this action that you bounce back. Have the Colts been bad for Anthony Richardson, or has Anthony Richardson been bad for the Colts? Because I think more bad teams and bad organizations ruin players than the vice versa.
You know, it's hard because you hesitate to want to like down talk a man, right? But Anthony Richardson, and I know we're not going to be the only ones talking about this. It's been talked about on other programs. He is so inexperienced in this position.
Yep.
This is the hardest position to play in the National Football League. It's the hardest position to transition from the college game to the pro game, and he is the most inexperienced of the bunch. Like, Bo Nix has so many more reps overall just in high level football than Anthony Richardson. It's ridiculous. So when the Indianapolis Colts are looking at the Denver Broncos going like, bro, like Bo Nix is doing things to help make them better, not great, but better. And you're not, like, what's the problem here? The problem is expectation management. You know what I mean? Like you draft traits, but you also have to understand where you are as a franchise. Did you have time to allow Anthony Richardson to grow into being an NFL quarterback? This is a conversation we had back in the NFL draft week. I remember in the end of January that year, I should say mid-January that year, Anthony Richardson was a day 2 pick. People were talking about Anthony Richardson is a day 2 pick. You're going to draft him. You're going to put him on the bench behind a veteran. You're going to let him learn. You're going to develop him. You're going to grow him behind the scenes. And then 2 or 3 years later down the road, that's when you unleash him on the NFL. The end of January was the first time I talked to an NFL scout, not for the team that he got drafted by, who said Anthony Richardson's going to go in the top 10. And this scout said, if I have anything to do with it, my team will take him in the top 10. His team did not take that quarterback in the top 10. They traded up and took a different quarterback in the top 10. I'm going to let you connect the dots.
Mm-hmm.
That was the first time I ever heard that. And I asked that guy, I said, is he ready? And he looked at me bluntly and he said, honestly, bro, that's not what this is about. He's got every trait you need in a starting NFL quarterback. He's going to go in the top 10. If it's not my team, it's another team. I promise you. And I was like, man, that's a little bit crazy to me, because you're literally basically saying it's almost the equivalent of a Fortune 500 company saying this sophomore in college has everything you need intangibly to be a CEO of this company. We're hiring you right now. Because that's how many reps Anthony Richardson has had as a college quarterback. He did not have the experience, the development under fire to be expected to come in and lift an NFL franchise on his back. And that's what he's been asked to do with Indianapolis. They didn't have the weapons that Chicago Bears have when they're trying to bring in Caleb Williams. They didn't have, surprisingly enough, the scheme and offensive line that the Washington Commanders have had to bring in Jaden Daniels. They didn't have the experienced coach in Sean Payton to bring in a Bo Nix. These things matter. You've got to supplement things. If your quarterback that you're going to bring in, number 4 overall, has no experience, you need all the experience in the world around him.
You got that right.
What do you give him? You give him an offensive line that is somewhat good, but honestly quite often banged up.
They're like really great in spots, and then the other spots
Right.
is like, who are those guys? Right.
His most veteran receiver would be one of the youngest receivers on a lot of NFL rosters. Not the youngest, but you know what I mean. Young.
I got you.
And his head coach is a brand new head coach. That's just not. So I don't want to say anybody failed anybody, because I think everybody went into it with the best intentions. But when you look at the circumstances surrounding and the context surrounding this experience, none of it is set up to succeed. So the hope is that the Indianapolis Colts haven't done so much damage to their own franchise they can't be competitive next season, then season after, whatever, and that you move on from Anthony Richardson before his NFL confidence is just completely destroyed. But I agree with what was just said by Locked On Colts, and I kind of just said it already before that. I don't think this gets rectified with Anthony Richardson in a Colts uniform.
Yeah, I think the thing that confuses me about him a little bit is he not only physically but psychologically, mentally, the dude sounds like the type of player that you want. And I know the guy that trained him in high school and college, and he still works with him in all season. He says he's like one of the best people you ever want to meet. It's just that for me, I think this he's a victim of copycat. I think everybody wanted, when Jalen Hurts had that success, I think everybody said, okay, we can turn everybody into Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts played a lot of football in college, a lot of big time football, where he had a lot of adverse situations and had to overcome a lot of stuff. He got yanked, and then they won a championship, and then the next year they needed him to get them back to the championship game. It's just like he went through a lot of ebbs and flows, and Richardson never had a chance to do that. And now you're throwing him into the fire. I agree with you. It's like taking a kid out of high school, making him a CEO of your company. I tell you what we're going to do. We're going to talk about who didn't make moves. Like everybody was saying Cooper Kupp's going to get traded. Then the Rams started winning, and everybody in their division act like they didn't want to win. And now they're like, we can win it. We're going to talk about the Rams and a few other teams in our third segment here on Locked On NFL. Today's show is brought to you and sponsored by our friends at FanDuel. Man, I keep telling everybody who would listen to me that FanDuel is the absolute truth, and you need to get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel. They are America's #1 sports book for a reason. So fun, and you can get paid. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets. $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, views, live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets. If you win your first $5 bet, you get the $150. If you lose, you get the $150. Just do it, and you're going to get the $150 in bonus bets. $150 in bonus bets with your first $5 bet, whether you win or lose. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports book partner of the NFL. All right, moving along here on Locked On NFL. Where's your team every day? My man David Harrison is here. We're talking about surprise teams. I'm going to get to that team he covers because they are a surprise at 6-2, and so are the Denver Broncos. But there's a team out west that everyone had kind of written off to die. That is, until they got healthy, and they beat another team on primetime in Minnesota that everyone thought was pretty hot, right? Listen to what people, the Locked On Rams guys are really, really high right now, and we're gonna listen to why.
We are so back, Ramily, and the Rams can make the playoffs this year. We have big takeaways from the Rams' 30-20 Week 8 win over the Vikings. Now let's dive right into it, Travis. So big win at SoFi Stadium, and the Rams prove that if you are pretty close to healthy offensively, you can score a lot of points. And you saw this Rams offense move the ball really easily against Brian Flores' vaunted defense, the return of Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. They both have big impacts.
See, I stopped it real short and sweet for you, David, because the bottom line is this. They got those two receivers back. They hung around just enough. They ain't trade Matthew Stafford to Minnesota and Cooper Kupp to Kansas City or Pittsburgh. The Rams might think that they can win that damn division because everybody else acts like they don't want to.
Yeah, listen. The reason this is happening is twofold. And I'm not going to sit here and say that I don't get wrapped up in it myself, right? But the biggest reason this is happening is because people made way too much of the Minnesota Vikings starting the season 5-0.
Ooh.
Listen, the Minnesota Vikings to go 5-0, they beat the New York Giants. They beat the Houston Texans, who we just got done talking about can't protect CJ Stroud to literally save his life right now. They beat the New York Jets, who are not what everybody thought they were going to be.
That's a joke,
they beat the San Francisco 49ers, who have been nothing but banged up all season long. And they beat the Green Bay Packers. That Green Bay Packers win. They won by 2 points. 2 points in a game where Jordan Love had to miss weeks of the season with an injury and threw 3 interceptions. That is not the normal Green Bay Packers.
I got you.
And I always have this conversation with fans. Nobody should ask a team to apologize for who they played. And I'm not asking the Minnesota Vikings to apologize for who they played. But let's be real. That's who they've beaten. Okay. And look, the 49ers still a good team. Houston Texans still a good team. Green Bay Packers still a good team. So I'm not saying that you should just be down on yourself for beating those guys. But these are not the full strength Niners, full strength Texans, full strength Packers. You lost to the not full strength Detroit Lions. And then you lost to, obviously, the Los Angeles Rams. But the problem is everybody's like, oh, man, they beat the Minnesota Vikings. That team was 5-0. That team was 5-1. Sam Darnold was going to be an MVP. Sam Darnold was never going to be an MVP. He was going to be a player of the month. All right, we'll give you that. He was going to be a player of the month. Sam Darnold was never going to be an MVP. That's no shade to Sam. The Los Angeles Rams, you beat the Minnesota Vikings. Congratulations. You beat the Las Vegas Raiders. Congratulations. You beat the same banged up San Francisco 49ers. Still a good team. So for real, congratulations. Listen, you got to face the Miami Dolphins in 2 weeks. So I know they just came off of a loss, but that's 2 weeks more, or that's another week of Tua Tagovailoa and this offense hopefully getting some legs underneath them for the sake of Mike McDaniel. You got to play the Philadelphia Eagles, who suddenly know how to win again. You got to play the Buffalo Bills, who have one of the most underrated MVP candidates in Josh Allen, and they just got better via the trade. You got to play the San Francisco 49ers in December, and by then, they're not going to have Brandon Ayuk back, but they may have a whole lot of other stuff back, including Christian McCaffrey and their swagger. And then you still got to play the Seahawks, the Cardinals, and the Seahawks again this weekend in a very competitive division. I look at this Rams team, and you are very easily looking at 9 losses. Very easily looking at 9 losses. I look at this Rams team, Wig, and I say, what won you a Super Bowl? What won this Los Angeles Rams team a Super Bowl is knowing who they were, knowing the situation they were in, and going all in. This 1 week Cooper Kupp is available for trade. The next week Cooper Kupp is not available for trade is not Los Angeles Rams, not football, but roster management. This team does not know who they are. And if you don't know who you are, your roster doesn't know who they are. And that is a surefire way to lose a game that some people think you should win against Seattle Seahawks this weekend. I don't know that the Rams are out of the trade market. I think the Rams are in the trade market and say, whoa, we're going to take this up to the clock. If they lose the Seattle Seahawks,
good point.
I would not be surprised to see them get right back into some conversations real quick before that November 5th deadline.
All right, so just for fairness sakes, I'm not going to push back on anything you said. Quickly, do Denver and Washington. Are they also benefiting right now? And what's the difference? Is it because they had no expectations and they have a young team and they're winning sort of the same way? And the Rams are a veteran team, and you would expect that they would win some games out of just being familiar with each other.
Yeah, I mean, look, let's do this. Let's do the same thing for Washington, right? Let's show some parity. Let's show some fairness. The Washington Commanders have beaten the New York Giants, the Cincinnati Bengals, who have not been all that great this year, the Arizona Cardinals, who I told everybody they don't do anything that scares anybody, the Cleveland Browns, who have been a mess, the Carolina Panthers, who have been a mess, and the Chicago Bears, who they should have lost that game probably, right? But they have not been great either, and I think they need some leadership changes in the coaching staff. They need some help there. They've lost to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who were a lot better when they lost to them than they are now. And they lost to the Baltimore Ravens, who are the Baltimore Ravens, even though they've got 3 losses this season. So, again, nobody's going to ask anybody to give back any opponents. But the difference between the Washington Commanders and Los Angeles Rams is the Washington Commanders are coming out doing things, and they're putting 40 burgers on teams that in preseason, they're like, well, maybe they can compete against Carolina Panthers. Nah, man, they blew them out by 33 points. All right. The Los Angeles Rams are coming out here, and they're like, oh, man, they got that win. Oh, man, they beat Jordan Love in 3 interceptions by 2 points. Let's go. Well, that's Minnesota Vikings, but you get the point.
Yeah.
The Los Angeles Rams, the way they're winning the games that they're supposed to be winning, not confident, right? Again, go back to that Rams Super Bowl season. This is not the same Rams team. This is not the same Matt Stafford. This is not the same Sean McVay. This Rams team is clinging to what they think is a little bit of that window being open. The Denver Broncos are on their way up. They're not there yet. They're not going to be there yet. It kind of shows you how top heavy the AFC is when you look around the AFC and you go, man, the Denver Broncos have been a great story this season. Oh yeah, how good are they? Oh, they're 5-3.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. That just kind of shows you how top heavy the AFC is, that's like your feel good story as a 5-3 team midway through the season. That's not that sexy, but it's Bo Nix, where I'll be honest with you, I was one of them. When the Broncos drafted Bo Nix, I said, oh, so we just drafting a quarterback. Like,
yep.
It don't matter who it is. We're just taking a quarterback. We're just going to take a guy. Sean Payton, and this isn't the first time because I used to cover the Buccaneers. Sean Payton making me look dumb for some of my takes.
It made me look dumb because I said he was going to get fired at the beginning of the season if GM gotten the coach's way, and now they have an identity. And when
Bingo.
blocking and tackling is the focus of a football team and playing together and playing for each other, I'll take that L because I love the game so much. I'll take that L for the sake of the football gods, just getting it right and doing things the right way. We do things the right way here on Locked On NFL, and we do it twice a day. Tyler Rowland is the madman. He can get you right in the morning with a double shot of NFL espresso, and then just slide by the barbershop. I have guys like David here, and I have Old Striker here, and Chris Carter, and Williamson from the Peacock and Williamson podcast. And then we saw Julian Council earlier. He's going to give you some comment relief always. Man, tap in every single day wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you check us out here on Locked On NFL. David, get at it, man. I know you got a long day ahead of you. We appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next Wednesday all over again. All right, y'all take care. Thanks for joining us here on Locked On NFL. We'll see you. Make sure you take care of each other, and we will do the same.